Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make this offset gatefold card. I'm quite pleased to be using this designer series paper in particular personally. It's floral impressions, and what I did recently was I made this card, then I made this card, and now I'm making this card, and in the pack one of the sheets is this. So I've managed to use each of these three designs in the 4-inch strips. 1, 2, 3. So hooray for me. What can I say? Like I said, it's a personal victory. Offset gatefold card. I really like these because they're so quick and easy. You get a lot of bang for your buck. It's got the lovely little corner that holds down the greeting on the front, and it really is so quick and easy. So I'll bring in the ingredients that we need. This is a piece of 8.5 by 5.5 strawberry sorbet, and it's scored at 1 1/4 and then at 5.5. That's the measurements that go across the paper trimmer as you're doing it. Directions and dimensions, of course, will always be on my blog. However, once we've got that scored, I'm going to turn it over because the smaller piece is on the right hand side, and then the larger piece is on the left. So I'm just going to make sure they butt up nicely against each other before I commit them with the bone folder. And then there is a layered piece for the inside, which is just the usual. This of course fits into a standard envelope, so this is 4 by 5 1/4. So I'm just going to pop that in while we're busy. And then, like I say, it was the the designer series paper was 4 inches, but what I did was I cut it down to 3 3/4 because that's the total amount, and then I cut 1 inch off the right hand side. And the reason I kept it together was so that there is a continuity of the pattern. You can sort of see it on this one. So then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and attach those to their relevant part of the card. So, oh, I think I forgot to say, this is 3 3/4 by 5 1/4 tall. So it's the usual 1/4 inch smaller. But sorry, I was so intent on pointing out that it's nice to keep the continuity of the pattern, I forgot to mention the depth of the piece of cardstock. So there you have it. So there is really the main body of the card. Then what I did was I cut out a square using the stylus shapes, and it's the second one in. And then in order to get a small border around that, this piece of shaded spruce is just 2.5. So I'm going to stick that on. I didn't cut the square out of shaded spruce, I just used flat cardstock. And then the greetings I'm using, I must be honest, they are so old, they're like eons old. I got a card kit forever ago and kept it. So what I'm doing is I'm using 2 of the greetings out of there. So there's going to be the hello is going to be at the top, and that's in the strawberry slush. What a lovely name is that. It's very summery, isn't it? And then friend is going to be in the shaded spruce. I must be honest and say shaded spruce to me is more of a winter Christmas card colour, but it does coordinate well with the green that's in the designer series paper. Ooh. And apparently it coordinates well with the green that's on my fingertips. Let me just give those a quick wash so I'm not spreading green everywhere. And then what we need to do is we need to attach this ZZ fold style because we only want it to be on the right hand side. So I'm going to turn it over, and actually if I move that out the way you can see, we only want to put adhesive up to the right hand side folded part. Otherwise when you close it, it will stick your card down. So we've got the adhesive on there, and what I'm doing is I'm making an equal border around the designer series paper. So now it just folds over into the right hand side. And then what I did was I got the stamps and the dies that go with the set. There's pretty florals, so I'm going to stamp this. I'm going to stamp it onto the Peach Pie, which is one of the 24-26 in colors with Peach Pie, and then I just die cut them out. So that's how come I've got the here's one I made earlier. And in a recent video, actually it was one of my paper pumpkin alternate videos, I had colored a stalk, like a second set of that. So this is how we're going to get the brown center into the Peach Pie stamp, because it's not a two-step stamp. So I'm going to just ink up the stamp, and then I'm going to take my early espresso Stampin' Write marker, and I'm just going to color the centers with the marker. And then all the while, I normally advise that you give that a quick scribble to get any other colors off the color the marker's trying to be. And then what we need to do is huff, just so the warmth of your breath adds a little bit of humidity. And then this is how the stamps look. However, sometimes the markers can be, the markered area can be a little light, and the temptation, let me just bring in the die that we'll be using so you can see how that would have been die cut out just like that. But then of course there was the set that I made earlier. Now the trick is, if this looks quite pale, you don't want to just color it with the marker, because that would be quite solid compared to the rest of what has been stamped. So the trick is to use the writing end of your Stampin' Write marker and just put dots, just sort of like little polka dots. So it's not a solid color, but it does fill it in a lot more, and you can see it looks a lot darker. But if you were to color it, I'll just do one, and you'll see how sometimes overpowering that just looks like a really black blob, and we wanted it to be just a refrain of the color. However, I cut them earlier, so of course there's a one on the sample card, and here's a one of the other ones. And then what I also did was I just ran one of the other dies. This one cuts 3 out at once. It's really quite interesting. And then they weren't stamped. They just add dimension to themselves. And then last but not least, I just cut some greenery out with this one. Again, there was no stamping. I didn't stamp them and die cut them out. I just used the dies to do that. So what I need to do now is doctor a little bit. I just need 2 stalks, because there isn't room on this to fit. And what I did was I die cut out the second from the smallest circle using the stylish shapes. And now we're just going to glue everything together. So put a little bit of adhesive on the back of the die cut flowers. Now, actually we need to put it on the front of the die cut flowers, you silly sausage. Good job, that's going to get stuck down anyway. And put that on there. And then a little bit on there. And then what we need to do is we do need to add adhesive, but only to the bottom. You don't want to add it to the top, because the flowers will actually clear a little bit some of the white. So we'll put this one over to the right, and this one can go over to the left. And then all we need to do is trim around the edge of the circle to take away where we don't need the stalks that were too long and they're sticking out. So bring in the dimensionals. So we'll pop 2 on the back of here, but bearing in mind it's actually going to hold this corner down, so you only want to put the dimensionals towards the top of the circle. And on this little flower, it can go anywhere, but we just need really a skinny little piece. So I'm just going to cut that corner off. As you can see, I've used all the hexagons and now I'm into using up all the extra little pieces. So it just needs a piece of dimensional, and that can go down in that corner. And then this one can go up here, and we know we've only got the dimensionals at the top, so it leaves the bottom free and clear for tucking this in. And there you have it, my friends. Hello, my friends. Here is one I made earlier, and here's one I've just made. So I hope you like them. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell. Like if you feel that is an appropriate reaction. You can post a comment or a question in the box below and I will always reply to you. Directions and dimensions will always be on my blog. And in the meantime, thanks for watching.